There's a Canadian soccer Spygate update, which is that the investigation now includes the men's and women's teams, and also includes tournaments before these Olympics. For those who have not listened to every minute of our podcast so far, which, by the way, you should go back. There's still time if you're hearing us on Friday night or early Saturday morning to go back and get your previews on all 39 sports. They're there for you if you're new and just finding us. But we did talk about how there was a flying drone that was linked to Canada's team that was, I guess, spying on a practice for New Zealand's women's soccer team. But anyway, Bev Priestman, the Canadian coach who had said she wouldn't coach during the game against New Zealand, she's now out for the Olympics entirely. And I'm going to read quickly from an article in the Washington Post. Canada Soccer CEO Kevin Blue says he has received new information that forced him to consider that the women's team's recent use of drones were not isolated incidents. Blue acknowledged he was, quote, aware of an instance of attempted drone usage during Copa America, which was earlier this month, and that was by Canada's men's national team, which lost in the semifinals to Argentina. The Washington Post mentions allegations against Canada's men's team using a drone to record a U.S. practice before a 2019 match in Orlando. And just a reminder, as we're talking about taping, that Canada won gold in the 2020 Olympics, the women's team did, and the final came down to a penalty shootout against Sweden. So I saw some people talking about, like, how much does taping a soccer practice help you? But penalty shootouts, so much of that is knowing which side they're going to shoot to. And oftentimes goalies guess, and you see them guess the wrong side. So if anything, to uncover information on that would obviously be a big deal when the gold medal match comes down to such a small margin. So big story. And this is a story, this is not going to go away, because now it's not just an Olympic story. It's going to be, we're going to see this for future tournaments, and the men's team and the women's team. I think we're probably going to see a lot more about Canadian soccer Spygate.
Yeah, it's bringing back memories of last football season scandal with Michigan, right? Where so Canada being the defending gold medalist, and Michigan ended up winning the national championship. This is an elite team that this is happening to, and it's going to shadow everything that they accomplish, whether or not the coach who oversaw the initial spying is there or not. It's going to be something people are talking about for a long time.
Yeah, and I think it did seem fishy again. And I've said this: soccer's not my sport, but I think some people were like, well, they were doing this against New Zealand, like that's kind of strange, and that part did seem a little fishy. So it kind of makes sense that if you're like, well, why were they doing that for New Zealand? Well, if this was like a systematic thing, or they did it more often and repeatedly, and again, these are all, we don't have all the details, and so I don't want to just like sling allegations over how much they were doing this, how widespread it was. But that kind of makes a little more sense that if they were doing it frequently or repeatedly or however often we find out it was. So, yeah.
That's the way Michigan did it.
Yeah, Connor Stallions. We got Canadian Stallions is working. Maybe that's where he went to. Maybe he's been north of the border after he got booted from Michigan.
It's not far.